Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm looking forward to you meeting Dr. Kathryn Philippi. And Kathryn, welcome. Glad you're here with us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. And so, as I start with everyone, why don't you tell folks a little bit more about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed?
Yeah. So I was never an athlete in high school or anything. I didn't really start running until I was in college. But even then, it wasn't like anything that I was doing super serious. I always had in the back of my mind I wanted to do a marathon. And finally, in 2015, I ran my first marathon. And from there, it kind of just took off in terms of like the overall feeling. Like I noticed I have a small running group, and I noticed like everybody in my running group was super productive. They had busy lives, and it's almost like how do you manage physical activity, like training for a marathon, to being like a CEO of a company, and I kind of just like thought about it, and it's like there has to be like a magic potion there of like if you have more if you're more physically exercise if you're more physical, you're more productive, you can manage your time better, you can manage stress better, you can kind of feel like, oh, I can do this, instead of being like, oh, it's going to be so long to do this, it's going to be over an hour and I don't have time. So and I kind of just grew from there in terms of like running from marathons to ultra marathons. And I kind of did feel that way, that the more I trained, the more I ran. I kind of created a schedule. I'm very routine in my schedule, and it works, it fits, and if I didn't run, I think my day would be completely off, because it's like I'll be out of my routine, but also I wouldn't feel as good, I wouldn't feel as productive.
Right, right. Yeah, it's interesting. As you were saying all that, I was thinking about my day so far. This morning, I went to the gym and had a really good workout. I mean, it would just seem like it was, a little more intense than I normally do, and I think it does. Just it helps the endorphins and just increases our all the feel good stuff, and particularly this time of year. Here we are in January, and just the darker days here in the northern hemisphere. Just I think the exercise helps.
Yes, I definitely agree. Even with the darker days, I get up early, even in the summertime when I get up and run, it's dark out, but it's part of my routine, and just going from there, I just feel better. I don't feel
Hmm.
as stuck in the house. Even if I don't know where
Hmm.
you are located. Here in Pennsylvania, it was a couple like -8 degrees couple days here. So, but it still felt better to be outside doing something versus trapped in the house.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, here where I'm located in Northeast Tennessee, it's been pretty
Okay.
pretty cold for us over the last few weeks, and it's just hadn't gotten above freezing many days. So I mean
Right.
yeah, yeah. So you ended up doing some kind of your dissertation work on this whole topic. And so what were some of the things that you've learned and maybe were surprised by?
So the title of my dissertation was the relationship between exercise, self-efficacy, and workplace productivity. And I found a lot, especially, looking back at COVID, it kind of provided, like a social network. And it's like, even though people were saying, don't socialize, but I found like in my little running groups, we had like our own little bubbles. So if there was three of us that ran together, we stayed together because we knew we were like not sick, versus like intermixing and having a whole bunch of people. So I learned that, it was that. And then it's also like a part of the workplace where, you could be in a healthy way competitive. Some places will have like step challenges. And that's probably the most common one. But the idea is like it can make kids competitive, this competitiveness at work that's not related to like the actual, job, but just something fun. And it kind of brings camaraderie that way together. And, I just found overall people were like, for one example, I think it was in Brazil. It's like they have these really long work days, and having like a gym accessible in the office helped people work better. Even if it's like a standing desk. Like, I wish I could have like a treadmill underneath my desk, but I'd probably drive my clients crazy talking on Zoom and like moving with the treadmill. But just in terms of, you know moving around that way and adding that to your day, like having it available to your employees makes it so much better. And then the employees feel appreciated because you're offering them a gym, you're offering them this outlet. Even if it isn't like a gym, it's still like maybe, having an extra long lunch break where you can go for a walk and, just get outside more. So allowing
Mhm.
that kind of aspect to the workday definitely, makes people more, well, they're going to feel better. They're going to feel better overall, and even just even getting sick. I found that like when I exercise, I very rarely get sick. So even that helps too with, insurance companies in not having like high premiums because your employees are going to be overall healthier. You're not going to have, so, you know, you're not going to have more obesity. You're going to be able to, it's going to help the, I guess, the other umbrella of the, the insurance aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so in working with people, how do you kind of approach this just in your practice and that sort of thing?
So the name of my company is called Running Alchemy, but by all means, does not mean you have to run. I just use that because I mean that's mine. Mine is running, but for other, I mean, it does not have to be running. It can be, weightlifting. It can be yoga. It can be meditation. And actually, to me, I find running to be very meditative because, like, especially in the morning when I run the same route, so I don't have to think about where I'm going and I kind of just lose track of what I'm doing and I think about my day. I think about like what's
Hmm.
going on. If I had a bad day yesterday, if I have a stressful day coming up with clients, it's like it's almost meditative to me and it kind of puts me in that zone of like that
Hmm.
calmness. It sounds kind of, weird like you mean like running is meditative, but yes, I think it's very much meditative and can clear my head better and make me think more rational. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know there's been some research into the how uh, bilateral stimulation kind of helps with mental health. And so we think about walking and, just getting people that are struggling with depression, just getting them moving has a huge benefit.
oh yeah, yeah. And like you said, you mentioned depression, but even just anxiety. And then the other aspect, as I kind of mentioned already, is the camaraderie. You have friends that you do it with, or you make new friends. You don't feel, I find also people struggle with, I don't know how to meet new people, and it's like if you join a running group or if you join a gym, you're going to start meeting people. You're going to start talking to different people and you're going to get connections and you're going to find that your circle is growing. And even if they're not your best friend, it's still like, hey, I have someone I know that can, help me with this, because it's another contact.
Hmm. Yes. Is there a particular kind of training regiment or I guess method to how you get people into running and or just doing exercise?
So I'm kind of different with how I do my when I'm training for a race. I don't follow a plan. I don't follow so there's different like, weekly plans for a marathon, like get you this many miles and everything. So I don't follow that. And I kind of do what feels good for me. And I kind of recommend that to people as well. Like you don't have to have a specific, I mean, sometimes people will want to have a goal. So it's like, yeah, I'll give them that in sessions to say like, okay, you do have if you do want to go, I'll give it to you. But for the most part, I encourage like listening to your body. Your body will tell you a lot. Sometimes it's going to tell you it's sore, but you got to work through the
Hmm.
soreness. But at the same time, it's like what feels good for you. You don't have
Hmm.
to unless you're training for something specific and need to have a certain volume, even if it's weightlifting or running. It's still, it's listening to what you want to do. Some is I feel like the best approach.
Is there any correlation around intensity? Because I think about the
Mhm.
idea of running a marathon, for me at least at this point in age in life, just seems like it might be a really difficult thing and would require a lot of intensity to get there. But what have you found with all of that?
I wouldn't use intensity. I would use consistency.
Okay.
So you don't have to be, I have a friend, now granted, she's a very seasoned runner. She just turned 70 and, she's looking at PRing in her age, taking the age group for the next
Hmm.
marathon coming up here in Pittsburgh in May. And, she's not running at a high intensity. She's
Mm-hmm.
going at her pace. And it's like, so, I mean, a lot of marathons, you have a decent amount of time, unless it's like a Boston type thing. You don't need to have that like speed work. I mean, it does help, but you don't have to have that so high intensity that you get hurt. You want it,
Mm-hmm.
but the idea is consistency and keeping it moving. And the more consistent you are, the more you make it a routine, and it doesn't feel like, oh, I have to go running. It becomes like, oh, I get to go running.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so important, I think, is the mindset. I just thinking about the times in the past when I've had a lot of success with, either changing my eating habits or just, the whole exercise routine. I think you're exactly right. Is the consistency's important, and yeah, and just stay, get the mindset in particular, like, oh, I get to do this instead of, oh, I have to do this. Yeah.
Yeah. I've also found too, like I run really early in the morning, and I did do it every day at around the same time. And some people were like, "Oh, it's going to be so cold in the morning," and I'm like, sometimes it's actually warmer in the morning
Hmm.
than it is midday, and I've seen that happen. That like
Hmm.
before 6 a.m. it's maybe 30 degrees, but then by midday it's like the temperature's dropping. And it's like,
Hmm.
oh, so I'm not cherry picking my hours. I'm doing it at the same time, and I'm actually kind of winning in terms of like, oh, I'm getting the better part of the day versus like, oh, I'll wait till later, and sometimes waiting till later doesn't work. One funny story I have, I remember one time it was lightning out, and I was like, oh, it's going to storm. And I was like, I can wait for the storm to pass, but then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go run. If I need to run home, I will. And I found the storm never came. So it's like if
Hmm.
I would have waited it out, I would have been waiting, hours, and I maybe would have missed the window to go running. So
Hmm.
sometimes it's like, don't wait, do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You had mentioned at the beginning that you weren't an athlete. What was it that got you kind of going down this road? I mean, what was it that just kind of inspired you or kind of made it, oh, this makes sense for me?
Ironically enough, when I was in college, I did OCS for the Marine Corps. So OCS is Officer Candidate School,
Huh?
and so the Marines kind of taught me how to run. Now, granted, they don't run far; it's only like a 5K you had to do, but it still got me into running. It got me
Hmm.
moving, and then after that, I just like in the back of my mind this goal to run a marathon. I don't know where it
Hmm.
came from. I had this huge goal that I thought, it seems impossible. Like running a marathon is like the ultimate thing. And, so I was like, oh, I'll do it eventually. I'll do it eventually. And I would, start running and then I'd fall out of the habit, and then finally it just clicked, it clicked to keep it consistent and doing this. And then it made sense and I was able to complete my goal. And now I'm running ultra marathons, which, up to 100 miles, if not more. And it's just kind of just grew. So,
Hmm. That's incredible. The thought of running 100 miles just seems so huge of a goal. Yeah. So, yeah, is there when you are preparing for something that big, what what has been helpful for you?
making it fun,
Hmm.
having the running group helps. As in having, and I also like to run alone. And when I run alone, that can be dangerous because it's like I find weird things to do. I like to do hills, so I'll do hill repeats. I know for my 40th birthday, I did 40 hill repeats. And but like if
Mm-hmm.
I would have asked anyone else to do that, they would have been like, no, actually. And meanwhile, like I did it on my own, and it was fun. Like it was. I'm saying it now, it was fun. I don't think at the moment it was, but it was
Hmm.
still like making my own route. Like being able to like, especially if I'm running trails, it's like I wonder where that goes, and then just going on
Hmm.
it and seeing what happens. So it's kind of just making it fun, not making it torturous in terms of like, oh, I have to run 3 miles at this pace, and that just sounds like work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you had mentioned, Catherine, before we started recording, that you also do some consulting and coaching work. You want to say some more about that?
Yeah, I'm trying to grow my coaching business. So, that's still, I mean, I'd like to, so as I mentioned, it's not all running. So, like coaching business, I want it to be more around, what is it that, what kind of movement do you need to have in your life to improve your, mental health, your overall well-being. So that's where that is. Some of the consulting work that I've done isn't really running related or exercise related. I've done like crisis work when there's been a crisis at a company, coming out that way. And when there's a crisis, I'm not going to tell people, well, I mean, I tell people to take care of yourself and do self-care, which can be definitely movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So with your day-to-day practice, are you in solo practice or with a group, or how are you doing all of that?
So I actually work for two different companies. I work remotely, so that kind of makes it easier that I can do that. But then I also have my own. So I have
Mhm.
actually three jobs.
Oh, okay. Okay. How and yeah, so with the running, as you had mentioned, that helps you stay a little more organized and productive.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can definitely dissect my day in the morning. I kind of think about who I have, client wise, what my day looks like, and I kind of map it out and, process that during the run.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, Catherine, I've got to be respectful of your time, and this was enjoyed having this conversation. Tell folks how they can get in touch with you if they want to find out more about your work and what you're doing.
So my website is Running Alchemy, and I have an email on there. You can definitely email me and contact me that way. I do have a freebie order. It's like the workbook on just keeping yourself on track with your goals. And when I say goals, it doesn't have to be running a marathon. It could be anything. Your goal could actually be getting a new job. And I feel
Mhm.
like, the movement part of it is, adding that you're going to get that new job. You're going to, reach that goal of yours, whatever it might be, through adding some kind of physical movement to your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. And we'll have links in the show notes and the show summary for all of this. And well, Catherine, I hope you stay warm when you're out early running at this time of year. And I really admire you being devoted to all of that.
Well, thank you. I hope you stay warm as well.
All right. Take care.
Thank you very much. Bye.